The Squad Democrats are agitating again over Israel. The radical lawmakers had a big week of calling for ceasefires and spreading Hamas propaganda that blamed the Jewish state for the Gaza hospital explosion. Today, they were back at a rally backing Hamas on the National Mall and bashing Joe Biden.
Calling on Congress for more bombs and more weapons, which we know will only lead to more violence and more death and more atrocity, and absolutely not, most America is not with you, Mr. President. Most of America is not with the people that don't want to de-escalate and facilitate a ceasefire. But you're obviously not talking to these Americans.
How many more killings is enough for you? Is it 1,000 more? 2,000 more? 3,000 more? How many more Palestinians would make you happy if they died?
And Ilhan Omar getting grilled by Hillary Vaughn over why she's been calling for a ceasefire between Israel and Hamas.
You called for a ceasefire. Are you okay with Hamas terrorists continuing to exist? Do you think that Israel should just lay down their arms and not try to get the hostages out of Gaza? How can Israel have a ceasefire with terrorists whose entire mission is to wipe out their existence?
Please. You're blocking the elevator. She's got.
How can they have a ceasefire if they're trying to wipe out this crazy lady? Don't worry about it.
So, Jessica, the old saying is that Israel ceases and whatever terrorist group of the day just keeps firing. You see that Hamas has not stopped firing rockets. We now have them coming in from the north, from Lebanon into Israel. So they're calling for a ceasefire when the people who started this whole thing aren't even putting their arms down.
Right. It was a very quick moment of silence on their behalf for the massacre. And then within 24 hours or so, it was moved to this. And like I just said, if you're not leading your argument or whatever, however you're speaking about this with who committed this atrocity, who started this isn't about litigating settlements in the West Bank or going back to 1967 lines. It's terrorism. And it's really interesting to see. So this ceasefire proposal out of Congress had 13 signatories. And then you look to the leaders of these movements, Elizabeth Warren, right, Bernie Sanders, people very far on the progressive left who are not touching it with a 10-foot pole. They want to make sure that humanitarian aid gets into Gaza. And a lot of more mainstream Democrats believe in that as well. They're not calling for a ceasefire. No one showed up on September 12th and told us, why don't you guys all get back in bed, right? We don't have to talk about what happens next. There are good people on both sides of it, blah, blah, blah. It's infuriating. Democratic leadership, honestly, I don't think it's about some sort of dereliction of duty when they say, I don't want to talk about it. I think they're just annoyed. And like, this is such a sideshow from what's going on. Biden speaks for us. This is not worth our time.
So, Jesse, you can argue that a series of ceasefires over the past 2 decades have led to what happened on October 7th, this idea that you can do a ceasefire, which is not a treaty or a peace agreement, and you can just manage this terrorist group that says they want to kill all the Jews on the planet, but really they don't mean it that much.
Yeah, a ceasefire is not an effective terror strategy. And it might sound good to the peacenik wing or the anti-Semitic wing, but you can't win the war on terror with ceasefires, and they know that. They're just appealing to the fringe. And they took direct threats at their president. They said that they're not going to vote for the top of the ticket. They named swing states. They named Pennsylvania. They named Georgia. They named Michigan. You say it's a sideshow. This is a loud sideshow. And this sideshow could have legs, Jessica. These are people that are appealing to a younger demographic that have been brought out of the woodwork. You've seen the crowds. Yep. These are not small gatherings. This was not a small gathering. The ones, Johnny's at a gathering downtown right now. You're underestimating the visceral hatred that they're tapping into here. And Omar seems angry at Jewish people more than she's angry at Hamas. And they have to understand that Hamas brought the suffering upon the Palestinian people. The Jewish people did not. So this is going to be a big problem for Joe Biden electorally, and it's going to be a big problem for the Democrats in terms of their brand.
So, Greg, I think we need a douse of Joan Rivers response to this type of thing when they call for a ceasefire after they started it.
It's sad because, Omar, what happened to loving your brother? At this point, why are we covering them? Jessica is partly right in that they hold no sway over the party, but they do hold sway over us, because they're interesting. They drive your emotions. But I think, why are we giving these wrong-headed nutcakes the oxygen? Let them fill in the hours at MSNBC. The Squad is now their only viewers and soon to be hosts. In fact, if I were MSNBC, I would hire, I think there are 5 now, right? I think there are 5 in the Squad. There's one dude.
There's a dude.
They're perfect. Call it the Squad, have it at 5 p.m., and the motto is, it's the 5 without brains. Because it's another problem with this moment-by-moment coverage is having to comment on the vomit that comes out of their mouths. Maybe we pull back from these chuckleheads, too. We got enough hate bubbling up from Hamas in the streets filled with sympathizers. These freaks have bounced themselves from normal conversation. They don't deserve our time, as you said. But we do, to your point, Jesse, we do need to look at our culture. We need to step back and realize that this isn't really about their influence on the party. It's about their influence on a younger generation who have lost the ability to love this country, maybe never did.
Jessica, Greg had said you were right twice this show, so I just wanted to write that down for the record.
I think my mom actually had a heart attack. So
twice.
I'm going to put a life alert on.
I'll let you know if there are any more. Judge, just to go back to the smear that the Squad has continued to perpetuate, that the Israelis targeted deliberately a hospital in Gaza when it was one of their own rockets from Islamic Jihad. Hamas is firing rockets every single day at hospitals in Israel, and nobody's freaking out about that being a war crime.
The thing about this that is very disturbing and should be disturbing to everyone who's got at least half a brain is that it is already the idea that Israel flew the rocket or the missile into that hospital has been debunked. I mean, we've got visual, we've got audio, we've got communications between Hamas leaders. It clearly was not Israel. And the Squad calling for a ceasefire and continually railing against Israel, to me, makes them complicit with Hamas. Israel has the right to defend herself. Israel was attacked. Children went to sleep in their own beds to become victims of unspeakable torture and abuse and violence and massacre. It was Palestine who voted Hamas into power in 2007 when Israel said, we're done, you can have Gaza. And they voted for Hamas, and Hamas charter is to massacre all the Jews. All right, let's stop playing, pussyfoot around here. Yeah. They can talk about anything they want. How many more do you want to die? Well, maybe you ought to start with the fact that the Israelis were living a peaceful existence there, allowing 20,000 Palestinians to come through their border every day to work and make a living and go back to Gaza, that the Israelis are the one who are providing water and electricity when Gaza could have been, as they said, the Singapore of the Middle East on the Mediterranean, but Hamas prevented it. And as the Western world now, Bloomberg, too, is like, oh, Israel, be careful, slow down, hogwash. They lost lives. They've got hostages. Israel knows what they're doing. Let them fight. They have a right to fight. They have a right to defend themselves. And as my friend says, it's not 67. It's not 73. This is everything to do with the existence of Israel as a nation state.
Indeed.
Hey, Sean Hannity here. Hey, click here to subscribe to Fox News YouTube page and catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis. You will not get it anywhere else.